traditional sports betting products just aren't really built for the modern sports fan anymore. This kind of whole relationship of a user betting against a sports book or a bookie just wasn't working. When the sports book controls what you can bet on, when you can bet on it, what prices you get, when you can cash out, this kind of full level of control, it's no wonder that the house always wins. From our perspective, one of the core theses we kind of started with was that as more kind of retail traders and, kind of casual interest people get into the stock market, it kind of feels more like gambling for traders. And on the other side, as more kind of analytic and quantitative minds get into sports betting and take it more seriously, it's starting to feel more like a traditional financial market in a lot of ways. And so what we're kind of seeing and what we kind of noticed was this convergence of kind of gaming, finance, and even, having crypto and Web3 kind of being in the middle of that already. What we're building here is almost a Robinhood style sports betting platform built on a decentralized Web3 backend.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SportsTech AllStars podcast. If you have decided to tune in on a video-based channel, ideally YouTube, then you will see this and that beautiful face. Hopefully, if you're of the opinion that these are beautiful faces. But yeah, we're actually launching our new season with video. And if you're tuning in on our regular channels, then maybe hop on to YouTube and check out what our video podcast looks like and tell us what we can do better. But yeah, this is season... I mean, no, we've not used seasons before, but this is our podcast relaunch for 2023. Like I said, as a podcast, there's been a lot happening in the sports tech space, which I will get into later. But first, I will welcome onto the show my guest for today, Neil Zhang. Hey, Neil.
Hey, Ron, how you doing?
I am good, my friend. I am actually in Goa, outside of the cold of Berlin, which is a nice swap. I believe Berlin today is around about 3 or 4 degrees, and I'm sitting in 28. So I think I'm doing pretty good. But Neil is the founder and CEO of Frontrunner. Frontrunner is a decentralized, blockchain-based sports prediction marketplace. Right, and Neil has also got into some money recently. Yeah, Neil raised a nice round of a couple $1 million, and I'll let him tell you all about it. Neil, before we get into Frontrunner, I want to know about you. I must give some context. I was introduced to Neil, I think about a couple of months ago, through Bryant, who is a good friend of the podcast from Beyond the Game Network. I believe Brian is also an investor in Frontrunner. Just a really good guy, well connected in the ecosystem. And he asked me to get in touch with Neil. And Neil explained the product to me in what I thought was a very interesting way. So I'm going to let Neil do that and tell our audience all about Frontrunner. First, Neil, I want to hear a bit about you. Let them know where do you come from, where you're based, and what helped you build this cool app.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Neil, co-founder and CEO of Frontrunner. We're a co-founding team of 4 co-founders who all met at the engineering school of the University of Pennsylvania. Myself, I've been a poker player and fantasy sports player since middle school, from the early days of watching poker on ESPN. I'm someone who started learning stats in high school because I was mad that I was losing to my friends in poker and fantasy sports. And from there, once I was in college, really dove deeper into the world of DFS, which led into sports betting, online poker, and kind of even eventually, crypto trading, stock and options trading, and kind of beyond. But about kind of us and our co-founding team, we're all based in New York City here, in Queens specifically. So shout out to anyone who's specifically Queens, not just Manhattan or Brooklyn at this point. But we're a group of friends that have really been arguing against each other about sports for as long as we remember, and through that have had arguments about fantasy sports, sports betting, and kind of the like. And what we really realized kind of through our over a decade of being together was that traditional sports betting products just aren't really built for the modern sports fan anymore. This kind of whole relationship of a user betting against a sports book or a bookie just wasn't working. When the sports book controls what you can bet on, when you can bet on it, what prices you get, when you can cash out, this kind of full level of control, it's no wonder that the house always wins. And so in our case, as longtime sports bettors, as longtime kind of, stocks and options traders as well, it made us wonder, why is this the way that sports betting is? From our perspective, one of the core theses we kind of started with was that as more kind of retail traders and, kind of casual interest people get into the stock market, it kind of feels more like gambling for traders. And on the other side, as more kind of analytic and quantitative minds get into sports betting and take it more seriously, it's starting to feel more like a traditional financial market in a lot of ways. And so what we're kind of seeing and what we kind of noticed was this convergence of kind of gaming, finance, and even, having crypto and Web3 kind of being in the middle of that already, we're trying to build something that's kind of right in the middle of these kind of converging areas. And so that's really what Frontrunner is. What we're building here is almost a Robinhood style sports betting platform built on a decentralized Web3 backend. You think of it as taking a lot of the recent innovations of DeFi, allowing people to quickly spin up markets, allowing liquidity provision, and combining that with aspects of sports betting presented in a Robinhood format. So the example I'll give is that like other prediction markets, shares in our platform pay out $1 if you are on the correct side and $0 if you're on the incorrect side. So, for example, if the Yankees are priced at 55 cents to win against, say, the Boston Red Sox in a given game, it would imply that the market believes that there's about a 55% chance that the Yankees will indeed beat the Red Sox in that case. And of course, once you have that share of the Yankees to beat the Red Sox, if they go up big early in the game, you could actually sell your shares, to basically lock in your gains, lock in your profits, or alternatively, sell early to limit your losses or limit your kind of downside in the case where they go down early. And so the whole point here is to give transparency and liquidity to the world of sports betting and make it a market-driven price model rather than just user versus the sports book or a single source kind of actor there.
Understood. And I love the background that comes from poker, and you guys have obviously come from, let's say, an analytics-based background. You understand probabilities and odds and how they need to work together to create an interesting, engaging product. I want you to spend a little bit of time actually talking about the use cases. You've already said that basically the market is made from 0 to 1. Yeah, for a layman better, if they want to come in, the price that they come in at factors in the odds that are built in, which you see on other platforms, right? This is basically the logic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so the way that our platform functionally works is that we're a decentralized exchange where each market is built on a smart contract. So you can think of it as, whenever a market for the Yankees versus the Red Sox is created, it is now a central limit order book-based market where all the kind of data flowing through it is fully transparent, right? Whenever all the trades going through, all the kind of price action that's going on there, it's all done on a market basis. And so users can not only take, the market price, kind of just taking the price that's already available to them, they can set limit orders as well. So that allows them to effectively set their own odds, right? If the Yankees are priced at 55 cents right now, but I think that that's a little, that's not quite where I want the value, I can set a limit order for, say, 45 cents. And so if the Yankees drop to that point, then I can place the order automatically. So it gives people more optionality in general, right? You can take the market price, which is more equivalent to kind of placing a sports bet like it exists today, right? Taking the odds that are currently available. But the alternative here is that you can set that limit order instead to essentially set your own odds for a given bet and find the value where you see kind of fit. And maybe even more powerful than that on the buy side is the sell side. So once I have shares of the Yankees, I can set a limit sell order at, say, 75 cents to lock in that 20 cent per share profit once there's some value there, right? To make sure that I'm not overly indexed on just the pure result of the game. I can actually get some liquidity out during the process. And that's what we've really found in our early kind of user base on our testnet is that kind of the longer that users typically use the platform, the more value they start to learn in that sell order side of things, which is something they're not typically used to having on traditional sports books in the same way.
Yeah, and I think usually the issue that happens with that is that because it's obviously based on real life performance, that there is one, let's say, activity which is raining larger than another activity. What I mean by that is that if a team is winning, and there'll be more people who want to either cash out than suddenly start buying in, right? Which essentially means that the market doesn't net off, which makes you a market maker. Is that right? Is that how you're currently operating? Are you the basic capital that flows into the system?
Yeah, so while we've been on testnet so far, we've been really testing out our own market making capabilities here. And, in the sports betting world, it is something where it's perhaps a little bit easier in some ways than kind of other markets. And the reason for that is that there's a ton of sports betting data that already exists, live feeds, live odd feeds, things like that. The fact of the matter is that there's basically about 3 major companies worldwide that provide the majority of the sports betting lines for kind of the majority of sportsbook products that already exist. And so we're currently taking in that data to help us set kind of our initial prices. But we also do plan on bringing in some external market makers as well. You're actually seeing kind of in the industry right now, the trading industry in particular, that there are more and more firms that are taking a look at sports betting as a more serious kind of, trading world to get into. We're very blessed to have a Susquehanna International Group, the trading group, be our largest investor in our seed round. And they're really excited about the prospects. Let me take a step back here. they're a trading firm that does a lot of business in traditional trading markets, but is also kind of famous for being one of the first institutional trading firms to have a sports betting operation. They actually have an Irish operation where they already do kind of institutional level sports betting in books kind of across the world right now.
Yeah.
They're looking for more exchange style markets as well, where they might be able to be, potentially more market makers, liquidity providers, like they are for other markets, just in the world of sports. And so we're still exploring options there and kind of exploring partnerships there. But ultimately, our goal is to not have to market make our markets. Once we kind of get that initial kind of user flow and volume in, we'd rather be a neutral exchange and let kind of the market take care of the prices. But we're very aware that early on here, to make sure our users have the best experience possible, we need to have some kind of price setting and initial liquidity provision to make sure our users have the optionality to buy and sell shares throughout the course of a game.
Of course, it's all about like a tipping point that you reach from a user perspective. Before we come to the funding round, I wanted to talk about something that you touched on there, which is the influx of sports betting, or how sports betting has become as big as that it has. And of course, this is all to do with the passing of legislation or legalization of sports betting. It started in 2019 through New Jersey and has swept across the US, and there's no question, or there's no stopping this wave, certainly. So there's legislation which has kind of activated this market. At the same time, you're operating in a completely unregulated space, right? Which is also going to see legislation. There's been a lot of talk about how sports betting or DeFi, DeFi in general will be regulated, but especially in connection to sports. How do you feel about, let's say, the regulatory framework that you're operating in? One side where sports betting is opening up and adding more capital, but on the other side, you don't really know what the regulatory framework will look like for let's say, a decentralized or blockchain-based application.
Yeah. So this question is exactly why one of our first hires after raising our seed round was a general counsel, someone who could really help us kind of sort through kind of the regulatory side of things. But the short answer of it is that it's complicated and it's always changing. Even though state by state, it's still coming out. There's new states that are coming in with this legislation. Actually, the legislation for existing states is even changing around peer-to-peer betting, as that's becoming more in focus for certain states where it's, originally it was just peer or user versus sportsbook betting that was allowed. Now in some states, peer-to-peer is becoming allowed. And for kind of some context around our history, when we first started this company, we were really focused on the US market. We were going down a Tennessee licensing path. It's a relatively affordable and accessible one for an early stage startup. It's around $1 million and, about a year of kind of, process work to get there. But we discovered early on in our process that, in states where sports betting is legal, peer-to-peer is not necessarily explicitly legal. And in our case, being a kind of decentralized exchange, it is ultimately a peer-to-peer product here. We're never even taking custody of our users' capital, actually. And so with that, it was complicated. The state legislators kind of kicked us to the CFTC saying, hey, this looks like a financial product, like go talk to them. Then in talking to the CFTC, it was, no, this is a gambling product, go back to the States. And so it was kind of a complicated relationship. And this was about, this is summer of 2021 when we were first kind of exploring the licensing path. And for us, we actually always were very focused on going down a regulated license path from the beginning, hopefully as a gaming product, not as a financial product, because it's becoming to the point kind of where you just can't be an unlicensed product and expect to be able to grow sustainably anywhere around crypto or sports betting at this point. And so with that, what we really determined was ultimately the best option for us was we're actually getting an offshore license to get started. We were aware that we could probably get a US license if we wanted to, but the process would be a much longer path and a much more expensive path for us to get off the ground. So instead, we decided to go after a much cheaper, kind of faster license, but that is still legitimate in the Isle of Man. We're in the process of submitting that application actually very soon here. But the plan there is to give us a much faster path to market legally, to allow us to start experimenting and finding product market fit in a much quicker way, rather than just sitting in sort of, for lack of a better term, regulatory hell in the US for, a year to a year and a half burning funds without any sort of proof that our product is kind of on the right track there. And so that's kind of where we are. We expect to receive our Isle of Man license kind of towards the end of Q2 this year. Our testnet is already live, though. A free-to-play version is available pretty much worldwide right now to give people an idea of kind of how the platform works. You basically get airdropped, a couple $100 of testnet USDC to get started trading on our platform. We currently have NFL markets, NBA markets, Premier League markets, and we're always adding kind of new markets alongside of that, as we're going, really looking to experiment with kind of, what our users are most interested in. But kind of with that, you can actually convert some of that fake USDC to real USDC as kind of rewards here. So that's how we're running it right now. The tech is, probably 80-90% of the way to actually where it needs to be to go live. We're really just waiting on the licensing right now to be kind of wrapped up there. And so we can really start launching with our real money revenue generating product. And then from there, we'll kind of explore how to get back to the US market in the most efficient way possible. which is likely going to be more possible once we have a little bit more proof behind us that, this is a product that works and is interesting to users. And probably once we have a little bit more funds and a little bit more clout behind us to kind of push some of these regulatory conversations along.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's pretty standard, well-trodden path of setting up base in a Isle of Man or a Malta or let's say
Exactly.
offbeat destination, which is more open to regulation. I also read that in your nice little TechCrunch article, which came out about a month ago. I want to say. I think I've just got the
Mhm.
article pulled up here. It says that you're legally allowed to operate in Canada, Mexico, parts of Europe, across South America, Africa, and parts of Asia as well. So you're obviously looking at a global market. But my follow up to that is that we're also seeing this global wave. I mean, I wouldn't say a wave yet. It's more like a small puddle with a little ripple that is emerging, which is obviously following the legalization in the US. We've seen Brazil move towards legalization of sports betting. We've seen Japan move towards like past active legislation to legalize sports betting. It's a very active conversation where I am right now in India. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, for just for context, Dream 11, which is a fantasy daily fantasy sports player in a lot of ways, which is by far the biggest company in the space in India, not decentralized, they're just traditional Web2 based.
Yeah.
About 150 million users. They've just posted their financials a couple of days ago, and I was going through them. And this is an $8 billion valuation company, which is operating at a
Well,
couple billion in revenue, or sorry, a billion change in revenue, and profitable already. So this is a big conversation happening globally. Does that affect how you think, or in the sense of, hey, there are so many opportunities now all over the world, or as you said, no, we're going to test and then come back to the US. This is the market that we really want to stay in. How do you like say wrap your head around the global sports betting opinions?
yeah, I mean, I guess the way I would describe it is that being a US based co-founding team, we're always obviously, hoping that it will be able to make it in the US. But to be totally honest, we're not tied to it. And kind of through testnet and even our early mainnet launch, which won't be available in the US, it's very possible that we learn that we actually find traction in another area of the world, which is, not the US. In which case, we'd have to seriously, well, one, explore the regulatory environment to make sure that it's, a place we can target. But if it turns out, for example, that, in Indonesia, for example, we suddenly have a huge lift of customers, we'd be foolish to kind of avoid it and kind of, to signal it as noise and not go after it. The fact of the matter is that actually, even on testnet right now, we have about 5,000 Discord users and about, 10,000 Twitter followers. Our demographics right now are actually shaded about 50-50 between the Western world and Asia in particular. We'd actually have a much larger following in Asia than we would have originally expected, kind of just based on the fact that there's a lot of blockchain interest there that just found us through various articles and kind of, our kind of PR push that's been happened towards the end of last year. And so it's definitely an area we're interested in. It was also related to the fact that, we were close to the One Championship team and, went to a couple events with them and we're thinking about a partnership with them. And so we're always exploring kind of different avenues. And actually, kind of along with that, we've actually seen some of our competitors go live on mainnet recently, to kind of the major sports. BetDex, for example, went live with the World Cup, and they're still doing Premier League soccer right now. Even in the U.S., there's Sport Trade in New Jersey, who's kind of alive with kind of the big five U.S. sports. And so for us, we're kind of happy to take a step back on testnet, and we don't need to do as much work covering the big sports right now because we can kind of see what happens with them, see what kind of popularity there is with them, and see what areas they really resonate with. And so a recent change on our side actually is looking into more niche sports. And what I mean by that is we're really looking right now specifically on testnet into long tail sports and esports that where users don't currently have other options to bet on kind of their favorite things. These are things like, world chase tag. These are things like professional ultimate frisbee or
Yeah,
lacrosse
I like
even. These are things like smaller niche esports that are more reliant on grassroots campaigns right now. And so we're going to let kind of the incumbents and the big players that are currently live right now experiment with the big sports. We'll see what's successful with them, what regions maybe, how are more successful with them. But for us, we really want to find these kind of smaller communities and really see if we can get a foothold there as a proof point that, especially if users are looking for something new and they're more open to the idea of, I don't already have a FanDuel I can go to, why would I use you? That's kind of what we're experimenting with right now and really hoping to find a foothold in these kind of smaller communities. And then from there, hopefully we can kind of prove our worth, prove our concepts, and then, kind of ladder our way up to the larger and larger leagues until we can really show that we've really been able to resonate with consumers. Honestly, rather than just competing against, again, the incumbents, if we're going after the NFL, for example, in the US, we're competing against FanDuel and DraftKings that each are probably spending $100 million each on marketing. It's just a really tough kind of sell for an early stage startup worth, candidly limited funds compared to these, multi-billion dollar companies at this point. So it's all about for us finding the roads that are, kind of path of least resistance at this point, where we can get to communities more effectively for cheaper budgets. Another community that's kind of we've resonated with early on is the poker community, for example. That's a community that's taken some notice to us, are really interested in our concept, and so they're really kind of waiting on the sidelines, waiting for us to go live. In fact, our mobile app will be ready in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So around in the mid-February is what we're targeting for our mobile launch, which is also going to be kind of a pretty big milestone for us in terms of being more inclusive. Sports betting, as you probably know, is very much mobilely focused right now. And we actually learned recently that even of our own community, 40% of our users actually only have mobile devices and don't even have a laptop or desktop for them to use. And so by not having mobile up to this point, we've actually been, limiting our kind of, reach just through that. So these are some of the interesting ways that we're thinking about growth and kind of what communities to target in kind of the near, 6 to 12 month range.
Speaking of smart money that is coming in into your ecosystem, you just done a raise, right? It was about a month ago or thereabouts that you guys raised around near 5 million, I believe. I'm pulling up this article as well. You have a bunch of investors, Soma, Gilgamesh, Susquehanna Capital, a bunch of names. What does that do for you? I mean, obviously, more money means you can go to market. You've already talked about launches of mobile products in different markets that you're operating in, getting licenses. I'm sure like all of this money goes a long way to that. But once that happens, like, what is your runway, let's say, till you're maybe out of the market again? Or that you think that this money, how far do you think it can take you, and what do you hope to achieve with it?
Yeah, so this round was announced in December, but was actually raised last summer in 2022. So it was raised in by the end of May of 2022. But the round was really focused on company development in terms of hiring and expanding our engineering team, the regulatory development, like paying for the external legal firms and the licensing process there, and then three, really it's the product development in terms of getting our product out, getting the web app ready, getting the mobile app ready, paying for some of the sports data providers, getting them onboarded, and also along with that. One of the other milestones we're really looking to hit with this round is getting our market maker SDK up and running as well. Basically, creating our fully fledged, external API where users can come in, whether you're a small player or a large player, come and get the data you need from the markets, place orders, and programmatically place and set prices if you're looking to do so on our platform here. And so that's kind of been the entire focus of this. And we'll likely be going back to market with another round, probably right after our mainnet launch for kind of, honestly, the true go-to-market and marketing here. This round is really there to get ourselves ready for the licensing, get us ready to kind of launch with the real money product, get there, and then hopefully, show some initial traction, get some initial proof going, so we can raise that, hopefully really cool Series A with another set of investors that can really help us not only get from the 0 to the 1 in terms of getting the product out the door, but actually, grow that product, spread the product, and really, allow us to flourish in terms of the kind of global market of sports betting.
All about zeros and ones for you guys. All right, let's talk about some successes. What have you found has been your biggest wins to date, apart from obviously a nice chunk of change hitting your bank account?
Yeah. I mean, for us, because we're still pre-revenue, the wins are kind of more. And so some ways they're a little bit more conceptual up to this point. I mean, there are some things like what ended up being. What we think about as some of our biggest successes so far are some of the decisions we've made in terms of some company structures and kind of how we've set things up. And what I mean by that is, for example, like the decision to go to an offshore book instead of just fighting the US regulators was, I think in our book, a pretty big win ultimately. I mean, we had spent probably about 4 to 6 months kind of spinning our wheels on the US regulatory market before we realized that, the Isle of Man is more of a 6 to 8 month process rather than a year to a year and a half. That was kind of a big win. We're really glad that we went down that path rather than, again, just be sitting there without a product available, just waiting for the US to hopefully open their doors at some point. Another one which we've actually gotten both great feedback on and are very happy with, especially given the market right now, was the decision not to do a token sale before the launch of our mainnet or kind of the success of our product. Kind of from day one, me and my co-founders, we've all been involved in kind of the crypto and blockchain scene since 2016, 2017. We've seen the rise of so many different chains, so many different tokens, and the fall of them in different kind of markets here. And so, there was a lot of kind of initial debate around both us and some of our external partners, whether or not we should release a token kind of leading up to our mainnet launch and kind of everything there. But what we kind of determined was that what we want to do is release a token once we're sure we have a product and a community worth supporting with a token, rather than starting with a token and then kind of trying to figure out the use case out afterwards, And in that way, we raised the money. We raised our pre-seed round in very much a bull market. We raised our seed round in kind of the tail end of the bull market as it started to turn there. And now that the markets are kind of in the state they are, especially the crypto markets, we're very glad not to have all the external pressure and noise of having a token price where everyone's kind of, demanding certain things of us that we just candidly weren't ready for. The plan for us always was to launch without a token on mainnet, wait probably 9 to 12 months to make sure we found product market fit, to make sure that we have a strong community that is looking for a token, and that we can actually find a true utility case where the token is enhancing the value of an already successful community and product, rather than, again, starting with a token, having all these people kind of join us and banging the table, hoping for the token price to go up, or for more use cases for the token, and kind of go down that path instead. So for us, those are kind of the wins that we've seen, that we've gone through kind of in terms of internal company development. Again, we're really hoping that our biggest wins are in the future once we go live with kind of our revenue generating product. But the other things that are kind of on the horizon for us are these partnerships with the smaller leagues that could really be a major boon to kind of the attention we're getting, and really finding the communities we really resonate with, along with ultimately maybe even the poker community coming in, which would be a great kind of a win for us as well.
I think you're the first person probably in the podcast we've done like 120 plus episode who spoke about a win as something they didn't do rather than something that they did do, right? I mean, you talked about not setting up your let's say a regulatory process in the US, or not launching a token, and that itself, in hindsight, is so much learning for you guys. I mean, yeah, the decisions you take in those small moments
Absolutely.
have a long impact, and yeah, especially in the face of the market the way it is, the bear market that we're in. Yeah, it's a pretty decent idea not to have launched it.
Absolutely.
That one held you well.
I mean, I think what people are finding. Oh, sorry. I think what people are finding more and more in the Web3 world is that the wins often are the things you don't do instead of the things you do, especially in this kind of world where there's so much experimentation going on right now. Oftentimes, it is the versions of, I didn't do this thing that everyone else was doing, that ultimately can be the bigger wins in crypto. So just like a kind of a funny nuance of the world that we're in specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're talking about going against the grain or not having the herd mentality, yeah, it's very, very rarely does that bandwagon ideology, let me just do it because everybody else is doing it. Very rarely does that lead to success. As long as you're clear about the reasons why you're doing what you're doing, yeah, then at least you have a path. You're giving yourself a chance, let's say. Otherwise, you're already up. All right. I think we've covered quite a bit. We've covered future plans. We've covered fundraise. We've given some sort of timeline on what you guys are coming out with next. So immediate action. So there's the app you said is going to drop in February. Yeah. So there's a little shout out if you need, what do you need, I guess, effectively? I mean, your fundraise is a ways away. Are you just looking for more people to come onto your platform and test? Do you want broadcast? I don't know, any players from the ecosystem? Like what's your CTA, if I give you one right now on the podcast?
Yeah, no, appreciate it. I mean, first and foremost, we're always looking for more users to come in, test, give us feedback on the product. We're really, TestNet especially, looking to learn as much as possible from our users to give the best user experience possible by the time we launch, in late Q2 or early Q3 at latest. Along with that, though, kind of talking around the partnerships thing that we're kind of experimenting with right now. If you have any interest in any sort of niche sport or niche esport that you wish you could bet on that you couldn't right now, like, would always appreciate, a shout out or a DM either on Twitter, Discord, Telegram, kind of wherever it is. We're always looking to find more and more kind of these small pocket communities where we might be able to make an impact, come in and kind of release markets for you to start experimenting with, whether free to play or real money in that way. And so whether you're involved in one of those leagues or just, a fan that wants to be able to bet on it, like, please let us know either on Twitter or Discord. And we'll try to get there where we can. And in that kind of way, we just don't know what we don't know in terms of the niche communities. We're trying to crawl our community and find what's out there. But again, there's so many sports leagues out there that people just are unaware of, that we would love to, hopefully bring more users to, and also, learn more about in general. So those are probably our main two asks at this point, outside of, just continue networking around, people who know sports and, investment in general.
Absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. And actually, I didn't address it when you mentioned it earlier, but I think that's super smart. I think we're in a world today where practically everything is a new sport. I wouldn't be surprised if like raindrops in the window will not start attracting bettors. But that's the kind of world that we're in. And so try to target those, maybe not raindrops in the window, but like try to target like small communities which have fast growing communities. Pickleball, for example. I don't know if
I was about to say, Kevin Durant buying a pickleball team or investing in a pickleball team is such a great version of this. Exactly. We can see a sport that grows so quickly and suddenly gets into the national limelight that way. That's exactly the kind of stuff we're looking for right now.
Yeah. I mean, I was just doing, this is now not so much for the podcast, but I was doing research on pickleball because there's somebody else that were helping with the fundraise, etc. And yeah, the numbers are staggering. I mean, and pickleball is just one example. There's so much, it's a voracious appetite. From athletes, basically, maybe people like us who want to play new sports, but also from broadcasters, from sports bettors, from books, etc. Everybody is like really looking for the next big thing. All right, and hopefully you guys will be the front runners at the next big thing. I mean, that was a really cheesy pun. but forgive me. You got to drop one of those once in a while. All right, Neil, my last question, the one I always end the podcast with. I believe with all sports fans first, I do spot the Lakers jerseys behind you. So, what has been your favorite sporting moment, either as a fan or athlete? Yeah, can't wait to hear.
Yeah. So there's maybe two of them that I can mention here. The first is a little bit less about like the sports in particular. So I went to Lower Merion High School, which was Kobe Bryant's alma mater, and I was very lucky to be there when our high school got renovated with the Kobe Bryant Gymnasium. And so one of the coolest early memories of me, and actually why I'm a Lakers fan, despite the fact that I'm not from LA, was that Kobe Bryant actually came and threw a party when the gym that he basically funded for our high school was opened, and so the Lakers were playing the Sixers in Philadelphia. He brought the Lakers to our school and basically hosted a big party with it was not Kid Cudi, it was Chitty Bang actually, and had this big concert. And so we all got to meet Kobe Bryant and basically like have fun with him. He was super loyal to the school and would always come back every year. And so just one of my favorite sports memories was just like partying with Kobe Bryant while I was in high school, which actually got me into NBA basketball originally. Kind of like a crazy memory to look back on. But maybe like secondarily on top of that was watching Kobe Bryant's last game at
Wow.
Wells Fargo Center against the Sixers.
Right.
We bought tickets for that game before we even knew it was
Wow.
his retirement season.
Iconic.
Exactly. So we had the tickets at like $30 or something. And by the time the game came around, they were selling for like 300, 350 once he announced his retirement tour. As college students, who are on a budget, we debated selling it, but obviously we ended up being super glad that we went to that game and seeing him play for the last time. Just seeing all the Kobe Bryant Lower Merion jerseys in the crowd and everything was really a
Right.
special moment, which was really cool. So both of my memories are Kobe Bryant related, but certainly some of my favorite memories that I've had in sports.
Absolute legend. Yeah, rest in peace. He's given so much to the world of sports and the sports tech. I mean, he set up a fund. He obviously had a career
Yeah,
lined up
absolutely.
in this space. But yeah, let's say we're still pulling for him. We're still pulling the space ahead in the memory of the Mamba. Well, Neil, it's been an absolute pleasure, man, having you on the show. A quick shout out. Where can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, our website can be found at getfrontrunner.com if you're interested in trying out the product or trying out our platform. Otherwise, you can follow us on Twitter at FrontrunnerXYZ. That's our Twitter handle right there. And then from there, we can find our Discord either on our website or through our Twitter directly.
Do it. All right, getfrontrunner.com and find them on Twitter and on Discord. Neil, absolute pleasure and best of luck with everything that comes up here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be on the show.
All right, guys, that is a wrap for our first episode of 2023. We're trying out a new format. Like I said, it's a podcast. I have not been the best prepared. My lighting has not been good. Also, it's dimmed throughout the half an hour that we've been on the show. But I have something going on. Hopefully, I'll find better spots. Let's say the internet connection is more important than anything else. What else have we got coming up from SportsTech X? Well, we're slowly coming back online with our content. I just did our first YouTube show of the year earlier today. Our newsletter and podcast will also be coming out in the next few weeks. We have an interesting update. We've just brought on a new investor as well, a deal that I guess similar to Neil described was in the making for a few months, and now we're finally going public with it. Will mean that we're, as SportsTech X, more active in deploying capital. That's what our mandate for this year is. So if you're a startup looking to raise funding, yeah, give us a shout. Details will follow in due course, but at least I can say the ink is dry on that contract, so I can come out with it. Startups who are fundraising, feel free to reach out to me. If you have my email, rowan@sportstechx.com, or find me on LinkedIn. Else, I'll see you guys in a week's time with more, I should have mentioned, fan-related content. That's our theme for this month. So more startups who are interacting with fans and fan-focused solutions. And we're going to follow this up with more themes every month. You'll see all of that on our socials. Yeah, cheers, guys. See you next week.